All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to first panel of the first Vault Summit. Pretty exciting. Excited. I think all these conversations are going to be pretty timely, but I think this one in particular over the last couple of weeks has been something everyone's been thinking about. And excited to be on this panel with everybody, a mixture of people who have both created vaults, managed vaults, building vault infrastructure, the whole spectrum here. Without any further ado, it would be great if you guys could introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do with vaults, and maybe kick it off with the most important property that you think a vault should have if you had to pick one. Okay, maybe we can start here.
Sure. Hey, everybody. Really happy to be here. I'm Anthony, otherwise known as Leutenegger, the CEO of Aragon. Merci. We've been producing what most people know as on-chain governance, but what that really is access control since 2017-18. We have about $45 billion in TVS. And it's quite pertinent today because we build the trustless guardians that many Morpho vaults and other vaults in the industry are able to use to sort of set and manage their access control, which we'll talk about later, but which is a really important aspect, of course, when you're talking about vaults and about people's money and safety and security. And what was the last question about, what's the importance of?
The most important thing you think a vault should have, property characteristic.
I'll go with something spicy like exit, the ability to exit before something could go wrong, when you're talking non-custodial. So.
Hi, everyone. Internal, yes. Luca Mossini. I'm in the BD team at Enzyme. I've been with the team for about 5 years, and Enzyme has been building vaults for the past 7-8 years. Actually, it started as Melonport in 2017 and became Enzyme in 2021, and. So we have a lot of history and experience building on-chain asset management infrastructure, and I'm excited to be here and speaking about this from our perspective. I think the most important. I think there's a lot of property or characteristics. I will choose something like accountability, so having the ability to actually see what's in there and what the managers are doing. So that's one of the most important things.
Hi everyone, Marien from MEV Capital. So MEV Capital is one of the curator in DeFi. We have about 70 vaults across about 10 blockchain. Main in money market in Morpho, and also like Midas Vault in multi-strategy vaults. So what is important for vaults in vaults is how to separate different vaults for traders, for allocators, how to set up different time locks to protect and make the vault working.
Hi everyone, my name is Arun. I'm head of BD at Fordefi. We're the first institutional MPC wallet that's purpose-built for DeFi and on-chain activity. We don't run vaults ourselves, but we see a lot of the vault activity in the space happening on Fordefi infrastructure. For the property, I think I'll repeat what Anthony said pretty much, and I think anything that doesn't have any instant liquidity offering is more prone to break faster.
Yeah, and Ron, we were just talking before the panel about how vaults are such a broad concept now. And obviously, we'll be talking about non-custodial vaults, but I'm curious, how do you guys feel the definition of a vault has changed over time, and how would you define vaults these days? And what are the different things that you guys are building toward that you think defines what non-custodial on-chain vaults are?
I can start. I think vaults are not very well defined. I think in many ways it's very nice that we have this narrative that we can push collectively. We can venture fund it, we can build tooling, we can get money to be desired to be deployed into these things. But all we're doing is figuring out what on-chain hedge funds are, how should they be built, what the access looks like, and the different rollings. yeah, so I'm happy we have this narrative, but I'm not crazy excited about the word vault per se.
From my point of view, like vaults are essentially a solution to a certain problem, so a solution to a certain challenge. I think like the first principle is that there's always going to be somebody that wants to have the maximum possible, best possible result with a minimum amount of effort or complexity to be like to have to face. So this idea of having vaults that are like products that can be created and distributed on chain by somebody who has the skills and the knowledge and can handle complexity and risks, but doesn't necessarily have all the capital, while and matching that with people that have the capital but don't necessarily have the skills or being able to handle complexity, understand the risks, but actually want the result. So this is for me like sort of the matchmaking that vaults where vaults find their product market fit.
Yeah, so I think vaults have changed over time, and the narrative now is that everything has become sort of a vault, I think is where we're headed. Originally, vaults were more like this is a contract that allows for basically deposits, withdrawals, and has an accounting layer, right? But now what we've gotten to is vaults include something we call strategies. And I think this is what has expanded this sort of definition and role where like basically any contract that can accept funds and then have whatever strategy within has become the term for a vault. This does expand, obviously, the capabilities of what one can do, which can make vaults sexier from a narrative perspective. Also can be much more powerful in terms of, like, from a user perspective, what we can get and achieve by using vaults. But then, obviously, you know, as we've seen over the weeks, also that can increase sort of security problems as well. Once we expand that surface area of what we can do in something and expand that complexity, especially not just from a smart contract perspective, right? But then we start to increase these risks as well. And so vaults, which like typically when you actually think of the term vault, you're really thinking about security and safety, like first and foremost in the traditional world, right? A vault, right? Hard to break into, hard to access, secure, safe. But we've now expanded that definition from like, and that's from like a technological perspective. And so that comes with risk. So really like that's the change we've seen. A very like sort of stringent definition of what a vault is, counting layer of deposits, to now like strategies. And that really has sort of transpired into something more.
Yeah, vaults have to do a lot of things on chain now for them to be entirely feature complete with, you know, the set of things that users would mostly want to make a lot of money, but they also want to be secure. And it has to be like a set and forget kind of thing that it's never been like that. Okay, so going off of that, you know, we have these introduction of a lot of different roles in these vaults now, so that they can, you know, fulfill the accounting layer functions. They can do some of the execution things. Maybe could you talk a little bit about like the Aragon architecture here and how it plays into vaults? And you know, we've gone from EOAs that used to control to, you know, now MPCs. You know, maybe Fordefi is building, and then now we have, you know, more governance-based decisions. Some of those things make sense for some of those roles. Some of them, they need to be done immediately. So what kind of, you know, roles do you guys introduce, and how do you, you know, actually manage those kinds of functions in a modern vault?
Yeah, so we've been able to expand in the last few years what, you know, how accessible, complex, or more modular governance, which is access control, right? We're talking about the same thing here, like who can do what under what circumstance. And we've been able to expand that, and that has now, you are seeing being integrated into vaults. So whether that means that the vault itself, so like the code of, you know, how it's built includes these parameters, or whether it's sort of, you could say, points the permissions to an external sort of access control manager. Like two good examples would be Safe, right? This is an access control, but it's, you know, you have, it's a multi-signature account is the access control. Or whether you have Aragon, what we build, which is, can be more complex. It can include token holders, it can include multi-sigs, it can include digital identification, and you can start to layer these sort of people on top of each other and what they're able to do, or these roles, right? And so you see now in certain vaults that there can be 4 or 5 different roles. It's just governance at the end of the day, right? And the point of that is it's trying to empower this stakeholder or this role with certain capabilities. Good vaults will then, of course, try and ensure that they, in that role, are only capable of doing certain parameters or functions within their expertise. So you see there's often an admin role, there's like a curator role, there can be an owner role, and there can be now what we call guardian roles. And all of them can have, different abilities. And so what we've actually built on top of Morpho, you could say, but any single vault provider in the industry can point permissions to us, is that now in Morpho Vaults, if, of course, the curator sets the guardian role to be an Aragon, it's like a mini DAO, to be honest, it now allows depositors with their receipt token to actually veto certain very specific changes that might happen in a vault. There's like a time parameter, you have to meet a certain quorum. So it could be like only, let's say, $1 or $10,000. So anybody can go in there and veto this change. And then there are things called time locks where people can exit before the payload is executed so that there's a change in the vault. And this role particularly creates a lot of safety and security, let's be honest, where if enacted, like depositors actually have like hard on-chain rights to actually stop something from happening they don't want and exit. And Stakehouse are a great example of a project where all their vaults have this guardian role set so that depositors can defend themselves. So really, we've expanded the amount of roles that are within vaults, what they can do, what they cannot do, and it's pretty important that that's defined really well to minimize risk and obviously maximize the potential performance of a vault.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, we've been building vaults for many years, so we've seen the evolution of how the vault architecture and design has changed. We've been, for many years, we've actually built what our pursuit was to create trustless vaults where all the features were encapsulated in one smart contract that actually was allowing for only certain things, and so the roles were less relevant, but so many times speaking to our users, we came to the conclusion that because the user would come to us and say, okay, I love Enzyme, but can I go and do a vault on multiple chains? Or can I go and, hey, I have this new shiny protocols, can I put asset into it? Or, hey, I want to have a new asset, but there's no chain-less price feed, can I do it? And then so since the answer was no, we realized that instead of get the world to try to adapt to us, we had to adapt our infrastructure to the real world and to what the user wanted. So that's why we actually opened up our infrastructure to become more modular. And this is where the roles and the guardians and having checks and balances in place through infrastructure like the ones that are talking here is very important, because you want to have the best of both worlds, which is the most flexibility for the asset managers, while at the same time have checks and balances in place to safeguard user assets.
Maybe I'll just add that I think it's fine to have a range of things. And for example, most of the Fordefi run vaults are using, classically MPC wallets are managing EOA accounts, right? In the future, we're working on supporting, without going into details, things that are not EOA accounts. I think both things are good, and we also see many of the combinations. So on any multi-sig where EOAs are individual signers, you could use an MPC wallet to obfuscate whatever approval process you want. It could be very, very complicated for different scenarios under one of these signers or two of these signers. And that actually gives you very strong flexibility.
I think when people hear the word role, they feel that they might be skeptical that, what is the actual difference between someone who is the manager versus the strategist versus the guardian. And some of them, the meme is that they're all the same person, right? I'm curious, MEV Capital, you guys manage a bunch of these vaults. How do you guys split the actual, say that you're a strategist and a manager and you're deciding which markets to approve as collateral. How do you actually, are those, different, there's a different wallets, there's different things. How do you guys think about those different roles that you could be in charge of for managing a vault, change that?
Yes, it depends of each vault, but if we talk about Morpho, people are more aware of. There is different roles. So there is one who can set allocation. the cap allocation. So you need to look at how we can liquidate a market. We need to decide to whitelist the assets. So there is by design a 3 days period to add the assets. And after that, there is some allocator. So they can change the allocation between the whitelisted assets inside the cap that is already defined. And also it can be automated with bots. So there is this separation between the max cap per each asset and also the allocator who can allocate to optimize the yield. That is for the curated market like money market in Morpho. And after for vaults like Midas one, we use also Fordefi. In this case, we can do the configuration we want with each client. So if we need to have approvals of each person who can be a committees, it can be whatever you want. So we implement our rules to say, okay, these assets we can trade, this protocol we can trade, this chain we can interact too. So we are in charge to separate and put a restriction on each strategy, and also to separate the wall between withdraw. So an asset manager cannot withdraw funds. He can only do some allocation. So it's like layers of security and separation of risk.
So sounds like a good mix between things that are entirely automated and things that you guys are actively making decisions on. Do you think that general question is that we should have some roles that are automated, and then you mentioned time locks as well that Aragon employs. Do those time locks sometimes handicap the automation of some of those roles? And how do time locks play into sometimes what need to be very sensitive actions that maybe even as a vault manager you don't necessarily want broadcast on chain if you're unwinding collateral from market and things like that?
From my perspective, again, it's all about segmentation, right? So you really have two functions when you're decision making, like especially in these vaults, it's the same thing, right? You have offense and you have defense, okay? So like you have offensive decisions that you make and you have defensive decisions that you make, and you have to ensure, like at some points you can over-index on one and under-index on the other, but that creates risk in either side, whether that be growth if you're too defensive could go down, and security risk if you're too high on the other. So it's about segmenting the risk. And so it means under certain parameters, you should be able to have a time lock and not have a time lock. And you have to decide what that is. And then the user has to decide if they want to, deposit their funds under those conditions. So I think there are ways around that. I think automation, I still feel like we haven't gotten to a state yet where automation's really like generally leading, asset management decisions or curation decisions. But I do think that that's a good step forward, even from a regulatory perspective. Like the more immutable you are, that's like the best you can have, right? Then it would be automated, the less that somebody needs to touch something. And then finally, the most decentralized. And in that order is sort of how you want to be set up from a risk perspective and from like a regulatory risk perspective as well. So I would say yes, I would love to see us become more automated over time, because that reduces the amount, of course, that humans need to touch things. It also means from like a profitability perspective, margins can be better. And I do think that one of the biggest issues right now with sort of the vault game is that it's not highly profitable for all curators. And so where do they then actually have the funds to play the defensive game, which is what users also need, right? They have to have access to that capital. Like if you look at Spark, for example, which is, much larger here, but they're able to spend money because they're profitable on like a security council. So now this like veto mechanism that exists, it's not just token holders that can participate, but there's actually people like who are paid to actually review this, review changes, and from a professional perspective, because most depositors might not have that capability, actually intervene. So I think like automation is great because it's going to help us also have better margins, be more profitable, and then be able to focus a little bit more on things like defense as well as being offensive. I hope that makes sense.
I like the definition of the conceptual definition of offensive and defensive. I would also add that like the severity of the risks is also a very important consideration. I mean, I think automation, we get a lot of requests for automations inside our vaults, and I'd say like some things can be automated, but there's also they also become some risk vectors. So it's important to define what can be automated reliably and with low like severity in case of catastrophic emergencies. So in our experience, the things that can be automated are the ones that are like, say, dumber, and then so that they have like low level of potential risk associated with it. Whereas the other ones that have like a much more blast radius or potential severity, then they should always have like some sort of fallback mechanism. I mean, we've seen like, possible governance attacks that actually like target things that are fully automated, and therefore like assets can then be moved if you cannot stop that kind of like action. So I think like having a bit of a combination of both and knowing where it makes sense to apply full automation versus human fallback systems or circuit breakers.
Yeah, I think the most important part is one small part of a sentence that Anthony mentioned, that users can choose. I think we need to offer, like, we don't know the answers, so we need to offer things with time locks, without time locks, with automations, with disclaimers on what parts of the system are automated, and users can choose and take their own risk. And that's what I think.
Yeah, I think that's the most fascinating part of where we are in the vault space, is that there are no right or wrong decisions. It is just up to the user, and it's them kind of choosing what actually they want in an on-chain financial product.
Yeah, and I think the frustrating and challenging part is that most users don't understand what they're doing. And reasonably so. Like, they're not professionals, you know what I mean? And so educating them to understand that is important, and then putting in actually defending them and creating mechanisms to do that is important too. Like, I bet you most of the people who probably ended up using XUSD Stream, for example, probably had no idea that the funds were just being sent off-chain to a third-party off-chain, curator, whatever you want to call it. You get my point, right? So they probably had no idea. So like, we definitely have to do a much better job of educating, really showcasing what the risks are, and then putting in defense mechanisms like early on that try and protect these people, these depositors. Otherwise, we get these issues that we just had.
Yeah. So let's talk about like the most, important but problematic one of those roles that I think DeFi protocols time and time again have said. Number one thing, don't lose money, right? Second thing is, be safe, and you can do decentralization and non-custodial and everything. And the one role that's kind of pervaded its way into these protocols now is, this emergency mechanism of being able to pause the protocol first, and then if a protocol is paused, then there's some venue for the protocol to then find a way to recover some money. Maybe just talk about like your experience with those emergency roles generally, and if those are automated, how you manage that emergency role in particular, if it has the arbitrary ability to move out funds, and if there's some sort of middle ground here that you think the industry can agree on that is good, that doesn't give this third party undue benefit. You mentioned some of the governance stuff that you guys do. The actual vault shareholders have to vote on things. Maybe that's part of it. But where's the balance there in keeping these products safe and having this role that could, in very many cases, save a lot of money?
I can start. I think like everybody agrees that the importance of having guardians is there. I mean, the best example would be like, do we all agree that we need firefighters? Yes, of course. But would we give like to firefighters the keys of our house, because just in case they come and bring our belongings to somewhere safe whenever they want? I guess that we don't agree with that. So I think there needs to be a middle ground where we have this type of functions, but we know exactly what how far they can go, what they can do programmatically. So I mean, I fully agree that I guess like the best example of these Guardian features are like halting or pausing protocols in case of emergencies, which is just saying like, hey, like let's hold on for a second, let's see what's happening, and then we figure it out. And so this would be the first thing, and then from there, not having the ability to take assets to an arbitrary address, but to have like a sort of pre-agreed or pre-established like safe lock where like the assets can be moved, or maybe even sent back to the addresses of the depositors themselves. So these kind of things is where I think like again like it's a trade-off, or it's a combination between something that needs to exist as a sort of foundational principles together with some sound governance principles. And here we have example of things where you can create governance principles and like roles and policies. So I think this is like the way to go.
Something we see quite a bit on our platform, and not only with vaults and curators. So we have an integration with a few of the strong monitoring companies like Hexagate and Hypernative, and our clients use our policy engine to basically give these entities a signer, an API signer, that would be very, very strictly limited under very specific conditions. For some people, I guess that might be like very much involved with trust. I think that's that's a good thing. That's something we need. And again, I think we need both things. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure, to be completely frank, and I'm sure there's people here in the crowd that feel the same, what a guardian is. But these are the type of guardrails that we see.
So in the case of the vault manager or this network being able to take control of the vault again, how do you guys think we should be doing the other side of it, which is the instance response for that vault? And is the solution, actually the moving funds out of the vault? Is it having upgradable vaults? Should vaults even be upgradable if something were to go wrong in an emergency scenario? Or do you guys believe in entirely on-chain code that these roles, immutable roles, manage everything, people can see it? Or is that not even the right way to be dealing with instance response?
I'm a little bit repeating myself, but I think we need to have everything. I think decentralized, trustless infrastructure is only going to get bigger, but forever will we need more trusted services. So I think we need all the parts of the range. I think my opinion on upgradability is probably not as strong as Anthony's, but yeah.
If you're going to act like an account manager, then you should be held accountable to be that. So the reason I like typically like using the blockchain and all the power that it can harness of being immutable and code as law is the fact that you can set and leave these types of things, and you can work under this type of environment because in our industry, typically, often the law is not is obfuscated away, right? And so what that means is depositor rights are quite low, right? Like that's often the case. But guess what? Like literally the on-chain tooling we have allows you to defend these depositors, to not act like an account manager, and actually give these people peace of mind to use the tooling as it should be used to defend themselves, to generate yield, to be safe, etc. It all exists around the code and can all be done. If you are going to touch everything manually and act like that manager, then you should be held accountable to that in the real world, like normal account managers are. And I think that's where the difference is. And you see that clearly with certain vault managers, creators such as Morpho, who are really trying to create this like on-chain version where sort of code is law. Still give this flexibility. But yeah, I do believe that like if you're gonna act like an account manager, then you should be held accordingly. And that means that, yeah, like you are held accountable in law. And if you don't want to do that and you want to make things immutable, make them on-chain, then guess what? That's a totally different parameter, and you should be held according to what code is law. So like that's where I know that's like very black and white, but that's how I try and segment it. And I think that's a sensible way to do it. The blockchain allows us to actually do these things very safely, where we don't have to be, have all these middlemen, actually work with governments, etc. So yeah, we can get around that.
From our experience, I guess like a bit more pragmatic in the sense that, by building vaults and seeing how these type of things could be handled. Upgradability can be a useful feature if you need to ship some critical upgrades for bug fixing or the additional features that need to be there sort of urgently. I think we found a sort of middle ground, which is the council in our case has the ability to upgrade the factory contracts, but we have an opt-in mechanism for every vault owner. So they decide, they have to make a conscious decision to actually accept the upgrade. So they have to opt in. So in that case, you really have there's a new version of the contract, but you need to accept it and upgrade it yourself. So you'll probably do your own due diligence. You'll see what's being shipped, and then you'll decide if you want to go through or not.
Yeah, sounds like the introduction of roles makes it so that we can't change the rules of the game once we have it. But that's a very interesting middle ground there of people being able to, decide if something should be changed or not. We got a couple minutes left. There's been 100 different vault products that have been released over the last 3 years. I'm curious if there's one thread or something that's most questionable in those vaults that you think the industry needs to be, pounding on the table about is we need to stop doing these, and this is the way that we're actually going to go out and solve it. Maybe it's just using new infrastructure.
I won't say any names, but any vault provider that can arbitrarily take out user funds and put them at risk, it's an absolute no-go for me, and that's unacceptable at this stage in our industry.
Yeah, in my mind, we have quite strong opinions. Sort of the black boxes, totally black boxes, should not be part of the industry. And I think the complexity of a strategy should not be a justification for total opacity. That's my point of view. And I think we have to we also have to, I think, stop giving more judging vaults by metrics like APYs only or growth, because sometimes those numbers are not really what's in those vaults. So those things I think I feel could be much improved in the industry.
So I definitely agree with Anthony that if there's a situation where a curator can just maneuver funds the way he wants, that's obviously unacceptable. I think some of the things that I find not the best practices are fixed price oracles and probably lack of instant liquidity of some sort.
Yes, it's true that the oracle issue is a very important part of how we can define risk in a vault, because the one who have control on the oracle can manipulate the price and can execute or pause the protocol. So, and sometimes even if we have a guardian or whatever to protect the protocol, if there is some proxy, it can always you never sure who can control this address at the end. So there is very few visibility for users, for the end users, because he can see the address, but he doesn't know beyond this address who are the name who control the multisig, how works the proxy, where are based the people who manage this address. So there is very lack of transparency in this space for all these topics.
Awesome. Any closing thoughts, what you're most excited about in vaults this year.
Maybe I can say that what I'm most excited about for things that we build. So we're working on we've been hearing from our curator clients for a long time that we need some way to attest for, is this AOA managed by Fordefi on a deeper level? What are the Fordefi policies that this vault has? So we're going to release something like that in the near future. And it will also be able to be pushed on chain, and I'm excited about that.
I'm excited about like the fact that this ecosystem is very, very good at like reporting issues and bringing up issues and like taking care of itself. There's a great degree of accountability in the community, and this pushes all of us to improve. And I'm excited about the future where like vaults are like modular, but also, verifiable, transparent, like accountable, so that we can all like have the best of both worlds, but without getting wrecked.
Yeah, and for me, two things. One is I'm really excited to see all the competition in the space right now. I think there's a lot of healthy competition, which is exciting because that's what moves things forward. And then the second is exactly this. I think depositor rights and depositor defensibility is something that's coming more to the forefront now. Every hack or every mismanagement makes that more important and more important. And so I'm really happy to see that it's being taken more and more seriously, because at the end of the day, our industry is going to only thrive when those who enter it are actually benefiting from it and not leaving obviously with no money, but actually gaining their money. So that's what we really need. So that's what I'm excited about the most. It's very thoughtful. So thanks.
Awesome. Exciting times. World's coming on chain, and they're going to do it through vaults. So thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Guys.